In the ancient land of Israel, a time of darkness loomed as the Philistines ruled with an iron fist. The Israelites cried out to God, pleading for deliverance. In response, the angel of the Lord appeared to a barren woman, proclaiming a miraculous birth. She would bear a son, one chosen by God, set apart as a Nazirite. His hair was never to be cut, a symbol of his divine calling. This child would begin the deliverance of Israel from the Philistine grip. His name was Samson, a man destined for greatness. Samson grew into a man of unmatched strength, a warrior unlike any other. The Spirit of the Lord would come upon him, making him unstoppable in battle. He tore apart a lion with his bare hands, proving his supernatural power. But Samson was not just a warrior, he was a man driven by passion. His heart led him to a Philistine woman, despite his parents' warnings. His desire for her set in motion a chain of events. Samson was a man of strength, but also of weakness, vulnerable to the temptations of the flesh. At his wedding feast, Samson posed a riddle to the Philistine guests. They could not solve it, and in frustration, they pressured his wife to deceive him. She wept before him, begging for the answer until he relented. The Philistines answered the riddle, betraying Samson's trust. Enraged, he struck down 30 men, taking their garments as payment. When he returned to his wife, he found she had been given to another. His fury ignited a war as he burned the Philistine fields in revenge. Samson's strength was unmatched, but his heart was easily swayed. The Philistines sought vengeance, capturing Samson's own people in fear. The men of Judah, trembling before their oppressors, bound Samson and handed him over. But as the Philistines rejoiced, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. He snapped the ropes like burnt flax, seizing a jawbone from the ground. With it, he struck down 1,000 men, his enemies falling before him. His victory was great, yet his thirst nearly killed him. He cried out to God, and water burst from the ground, reviving his strength. Samson was chosen, yet he was still a man in need. For 20 years, Samson judged Israel, bringing terror to the Philistines. But his heart remained restless, drawn to the temptations of the enemy. One night he entered Gaza, seeking the company of a woman. The Philistines lay in wait, plotting to kill him at dawn. But Samson awoke in the night, sensing their scheme. He tore the city gates from the ground, carrying them to a distant hill. His strength was his glory, yet his reckless heart led him astray. The enemy watched, waiting for the moment to strike. Then came Delilah, a woman of cunning and deceit. The Philistine rulers came to her, offering silver for Samson's secret. She played the game of love, seducing the mighty warrior. "Tell me your strength, that I may know it," she whispered sweetly. Samson toyed with her, giving false answers at first. But Delilah was persistent, wearing him down day by day. At last, he revealed the truth. His strength was in his uncut hair. The trap was set, and Samson had sealed his fate. As Samson slept, Delilah called for the Philistines. A razor touched his head, and his locks fell away. He awoke to their attack, expecting his strength to return. But the Lord had departed from him, and he was powerless. The Philistines seized him, gouging out his eyes in cruel vengeance. They bound him in bronze shackles, dragging him to Gaza in disgrace. There he toiled in prison, grinding grain like a beast. The mighty Samson had fallen, betrayed by his own desires. Blinded and broken, Samson sat in the darkness of his prison. The laughter of his enemies echoed in his ears. But as the days passed, something unseen was happening. His hair began to grow again, though no one took notice. In his suffering, Samson remembered the God of his youth. His pride had led him astray, but now he humbled himself. He had lost everything: his strength, his freedom, his sight. Yet in his weakness, he found something greater than power: faith. The Philistines gathered in their great temple, celebrating their victory. Thousands filled the hall, honoring their god, Dagon. "Bring out Samson," they cried, eager to mock him. The once mighty warrior was led in, blind and bound. They jeered at him, laughing at his fall from glory. But Samson felt his way to the temple pillars, his hands pressing against them. He whispered a final prayer, his heart turning fully to God. "Strengthen me once more," he pleaded, "that I may avenge my blindness." The Spirit of the Lord surged through Samson one last time. With all his might, he pushed against the pillars. The temple shook, the stone groaning under the pressure. The laughter turned to screams as the walls began to crumble. The roof collapsed, crushing the Philistine lords and the mocking crowd. In his death, Samson struck a greater blow than in his life. He had been broken, betrayed, and humbled. But in the end, he found redemption in surrendering to God. As the dust settled, the Philistine stronghold lay in ruins. The mighty had fallen not by the sword, but by the power of God. Samson, once feared for his strength, had redeemed himself in death. His final act was not one of vengeance alone, but of faith restored. He had strayed from his path, led by temptation and pride. Yet in his last breath, he called upon the Lord and he was heard. His story did not end in shame, but in triumph. Even in death, he fulfilled his divine purpose. The news of Samson's destruction spread throughout Israel. The Philistines, once invincible, had suffered a crushing blow. Samson's brothers and kinsmen came to retrieve his body. They carried him back to the land of his fathers, bearing him with honor. Though he had fallen, he was not forgotten, for his sacrifice was great. The people mourned, but they also rejoiced, for God had shown his power. Samson had been a man of great flaws, yet God still used him. His legacy became a warning, but also a beacon of hope. Samson's life was a paradox, a man of incredible strength, yet deep weakness. He had been chosen before birth, set apart for a divine mission. Yet time and again he faltered, lured by worldly desires. His love for Philistine women led to his downfall. His pride blinded him long before the Philistines ever took his sight. But even in his failures, God never abandoned him. His story teaches that even the strongest can fall, but those who turn back to God can still find redemption. The story of Samson echoes through time, teaching lessons of faith and folly. His strength was a gift, but he treated it as his own. He trusted in his might, forgetting that it came from God. Time and again, he walked the path of arrogance. But when he had nothing left, no sight, no freedom, no power, he found the truth. Strength alone does not make a man great. Faith does. His last prayer was not one of pride, but of surrender. And in that surrender, he became truly strong. Israel, though delivered in part, still faced trials ahead. The cycle of sin and redemption continued for generations. But Samson's story stood as a warning to those who would hear. Strength without wisdom leads to ruin. A calling without obedience leads to downfall. He was given every opportunity to be a great leader. Yet he squandered his gifts, chasing fleeting pleasures. However, in the end, his heart turned back to God, and that made all the difference. The Philistines had underestimated the power of Samson's God. They believed their victory was complete when they captured him. They mocked the Lord, thinking their god, Dagon, was superior. But Samson's final act shattered their illusion. It was not Samson's muscles that brought down the temple. It was the power of the Almighty answering a humbled man's prayer. In the end, it was not just a battle of men, but of gods. And the God of Israel had proven himself once again. Samson's mistakes are not unlike the struggles of men today. Many are gifted, blessed with talents and abilities, yet pride, temptation, and recklessness can lead to destruction. Samson had a calling, but he tried to walk his own path. He let his desires cloud his judgment, trusting in his own strength. But true power is not in the hands of man, but in the hands of God. Those who rely on themselves will fall, but those who trust in the Lord will stand firm. The tale of Samson is not just one of failure, but of mercy. God could have abandoned him in his blindness. He could have left him to rot in the prison of the Philistines. Yet he allowed Samson's hair to grow once more. It was not the hair itself that held power, but the symbol of a renewed covenant. Samson's return to God restored his purpose. And though he had lost much, God still used him for his glory. His redemption was proof of divine grace. In life, Samson had been a lone warrior, relying on his fists. He had fought battles with jawbones, fire, and brute strength. But his greatest victory came not from violence, but from faith. His final battle was fought on his knees, calling upon the Lord. It was in his surrender that he achieved his greatest triumph. Strength had failed him, sight had left him, and pride had broken him. But faith remained, and that was enough. His death was not in vain, for it fulfilled God's plan. Generations later, the story of Samson still inspires and warns. His name is remembered among the judges of Israel. His deeds, both good and bad, are recorded for all to see. He was not perfect, far from it, but he was still chosen. His failures remind us of our own, but his redemption gives hope. God does not demand perfection, only faith and obedience. Even the fallen can rise again when they turn back to him. Samson's life is a testament to that truth. The ruins of the Philistine temple stood as a monument of God's power. The enemies of Israel had mocked, but they were silenced in an instant. The God of Samson was greater than their false idols. But Samson's life also stood as a monument of wasted potential. He could have been more, done more if only he had walked in obedience. He was meant to lead, but he followed his own desires instead. And yet, even in his failures, God worked his will. Redemption was his final legacy. What might Samson have accomplished had he remained faithful? What victories could he have won if he had trusted in God alone? The answer remains unknown, a story untold. Yet his life was not without purpose, for even in his downfall, he taught a lesson. Strength fades, beauty fades, but faith endures. Those who trust in their own power will fall, but those who cling to God, even in their weakness, will find true strength. Samson's story remains a mirror for all who hear. His grave was marked, but his legacy did not end with him. The Israelites remembered his sacrifice, and the Philistines feared his name. He had been their tormentor, their destroyer, their nightmare. But to Israel, he was both a cautionary tale and a symbol of hope. Though he failed, he was not forsaken. Though he was betrayed, he was not abandoned. His strength had left him, but God had not. In the end, that was the only strength that mattered. From Samson's story, one truth stands clear. God's plans will not be stopped. Even when his chosen falter, his will prevails. Samson had lost his way, but God still guided history. He used even a broken man to fulfill his purpose. His enemies believed they had won, but they were wrong. Samson's strength was not his own, but a gift from above. And in his final moment, he returned that gift to the one who gave it. In weakness, he found his greatest strength. So let the story of Samson be both a warning and an encouragement. Let it remind us of the dangers of pride, temptation, and reckless living. But let it also teach that no one is beyond redemption. Even the strongest can fall, but even the fallen can rise again. Samson's story is the story of man, flawed, broken, but still loved by God. And in the end, his strength was not in his arms, but in his faith. Strength, betrayal, redemption. Samson's tale lives on. The story of Samson is more than just a tale of strength and downfall. It is a testament to the power of faith, the danger of temptation, and the mercy of God. Though he stumbled, he was never truly abandoned. His final act was not just one of vengeance, but of redemption. Even in his darkest moment, he turned back to the Lord, and he was heard. His life serves as a reminder that no one is beyond saving. No matter how far we stray, God's grace is always within reach. Strength fades, but faith endures forever. His name is remembered not just for his failures, but for his return to God. His story stands as a lesson for all who seek the path of righteousness. As we reflect on Samson's journey, we see both warning and hope. We see the cost of arrogance, but also the power of repentance. Samson's strength alone could not save him, but his faith in God did. His legacy reminds us that true power does not lie in might, but in obedience. The fall of Samson was great, but his redemption was even greater. His story echoes through time, calling us to trust in the Lord. And in that trust, we find our true strength. For in our weakness, he is strong. May we learn from Samson's mistakes and embrace God's guidance in our lives. In the end, it is not our strength that matters, but our faith in the one who never fails.